Right, we're going to look at 1.2 homework. See how that looks. So in 1.2, there are a handful of questions. Oh, there's only 4 questions. All right. So let's just look at the first. So this is just, these are looking at equations. 1.1 was actually expressions. Expressions are numbers, variables, pluses and minuses, but no equal sign. When you see an equal sign, it becomes an equation. So this is saying that that left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side. So they want to know what would B have to be in order for these to be equal to each other. So I'm just going to do it kind of the old school way. 7 minus 8b equals negative 25. So the idea is to get the variables on one side, everything else on the other. So I am going to start by subtracting 7 from both sides. So 7 minus 7 is 0. And then I still have the negative 8b. Negative 25 minus 7 would be negative 32. All right, so now I got my terms. This is called a term, and it's got a variable in it. I want to get rid of that negative 8. So how do I do that? Well, I divide both sides by negative 8. Okay, so negative 8b divided by negative 8 would be b, and negative 32 divided by negative 8 would be a positive 4. So that tells me that b should be 4. Now what you can do is you can always check yourself. So the left-hand side of this is 7 minus 8, and I think that's a 4, which would be 7 minus 32, which would be negative 25. And on the right-hand side of the equal sign, we had a negative 25. So yay, they match. Okay, so we're good to go. So B should be 4. So I'm just going to come in. Notice this already has the B equals, so you don't have to push the B, put the B equals. I can just do the 4. Yay, we got it. All right, so let's look at the next one. This is very similar, so I'm not going to go over this one. Very similar to that last one. All right, ooh, this one's a big old mess, isn't it? So this is an expression with lots and lots of stuff going on. So the first thing is you see those negative exponents. So let's remind ourselves what those negative exponents mean. Whoops, I wanted to make this a little bigger. Okay, so let's remind ourselves what negative exponents are. So when you see, I'm just going to use a, when you see a to the negative nth power, this means 1 over a to that power, okay? So notice that if that negative is in the bottom, then this would mean 1 over a to the negative n, which is actually a to the n. You see it would flip it. Also, let's recall how you work with exponents. So let's say you have x to the a times x to the b. This means you have ax's and bx's. So if you put it together, you now have this many x's. Makes sense? Now, if you have x to the a to the b power, this means that you're writing x to the a b times. Okay, so how many x's do you end up with? Well, multiplication, right? Think about it. 2 squared to the third means you have 3 of these, which means you now have 2 to the 6th, right? Okay, and the last one is if you have x to the a over x to the b. So keep in mind what this means. You have ax's on the top, bx's on the bottom. So what will you be left with? Well, a minus b. So again, if you think about, you know, x cubed over x to the 5th, that means you have 3 on top, 5 on the bottom. So you can just start not canceling, but reducing these. And notice everything on top went away, so we would say it's a 1, and we end up with 2 x's on the bottom. So see, this is 1 over x squared. Well, if you just subtract, you would have gotten 3 minus 5 is negative 2. And again, what does the negative means? It means put it on the bottom. So let's look at this one. And I'm going to start at, well, you can kind of start anywhere. Let's see. Let's get rid of those parentheses, okay? So with the parentheses, notice this is multiplication on the inside of those parentheses. So that means that when you see this squared, it means there's 2 of these, right? So you're writing 2 of those. So really what you're doing is both of them are getting that exponent. So he's getting squared and he's getting squared. On the bottom, we have x to the negative 2, y to the negative 5, z to the negative 8. So power to a power, remember you multiply. So this is x cubed, y to the negative 8, z to the negative 6, divided by x to the negative 2, y to the negative 5, z to the negative 8. So now what we can do is we can go ahead and use our subtraction rule, or you can move the negatives around first. It's really up to you. If we move the negatives first, let's see, the x cubed is on top. That y to the negative 8th would actually go to the bottom. Z to the negative 6th would go to the bottom. That x to the negative 2 would go to the top. Y to the negative 5 would go to the top. And z to the negative 8 would go to the top. See, all those, oops, he's not negative anymore, is he? So all those negative exponents, move them around. So then you could just say, okay, so here's x to the 5th. And then we have 5 y's on top, 8 y's on the bottom. That would leave you with 3 y's on the bottom. 8 z's on top, 6 z's on the bottom would leave you with 2 z's on top. So now the other way you could do it is to just simply subtract the exponents. So straight from here, you could say, okay, so this is 3 minus a negative 2, negative 8 minus a negative 5, z to the negative 6 minus a negative 8. So notice this is going to give you x to the 5th, y to the negative 3, z squared, which is the same thing as that. Okay. It does say, if you read the directions, it says they want positive exponents only. So we are going to write it this way. So we're going to have x to the 5th, z squared divided by y cubed. So this is our first one with fractions and exponents that we've had to put in. You can use these buttons. I tend to just use parentheses, so I'm just going to do x caret 5th. And then z caret 2, close my parentheses, divided by, I'm just using the actual keyboard symbols, y caret to the 3rd. So what I just typed in on my keyboard was parentheses x caret 5 space, or well, arrow key, z caret 2, I close parentheses, divided by y caret 3. Okay, you do have to just push your over key here so that you get out of the exponent when you're done. But you can always use the pieces as well. And also, did you notice that it said syntax error there for a moment? That's because I didn't have, I hadn't put anything in the denominator yet. So it'll let you know if you've entered something incorrectly. And the last one, this is very similar to the one we just did. Notice 20 divided by 5 is 4. 9x's on top, 5x's on the bottom, leaves you with 4x's on top, and 4y's on the top, 3y's on the bottom. I'm pushing the arrow key right now to get out of the exponent. Leaves you with 1 on the top. So we did it. All right, I'm done. Yes, I know I skipped one. And I got a 75. All right, so that is your 1.2.